Welcome to Roll Credits, the podcast where movie lovers geek out over behind-the-scenes facts, fun trivia, and cinematic connections. With a little help from AI tools, we dig into the details, and while we try to keep things accurate and fun, there might be the occasional hiccup or outdated bit, so double-check before citing us at movie night. Today, we're stepping into the world of Ballerina, the 2025 spin-off from the John Wick universe. From Ana de Armas' intense prep to franchise ties and hidden connections, we've got all the stylish action facts lined up. Okay, so let's jump right in then. You gave us quite a bit of material on Ballerina, the John Wick spinoff.
Yeah, lots to sift through.
So our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is basically to go through all that information you provided and pull out, the most interesting stuff. Facts, trivia, insights, what really makes this movie tick within that Wick universe.
Absolutely. And right off the bat, what's clear from the sources is how Ballerina is positioned. It's the first big feature spinoff. Meant to be its own thing, but totally connected.
Totally. I mean, the title alone from the world of John Wick, Ballerina, no ambiguity there.
None at all.
And we know the release date now is June 6, 2025, which interestingly got moved, right? It was supposed to be June 2024.
Yeah, pushed back a whole year. That's definitely something we should circle back to. There's quite a story there, apparently.
Okay. And the director is Len Wiseman.
Correct. And the basic idea, the premise, follows this character, Eve Maccaro. She's an assassin trained by the Ruska Roma.
Ah, the group from Chapter 3 with Angelica Houston.
That's the one. And Eve's motivation seems pretty classic action movie fuel revenge for her family's murder.
Right. And fans will be glad to hear the sources confirm it's rated R. So same level of intensity, strong, bloody violence language.
Oh, yeah. Definitely keeping with the franchise tone. No pulling punches, as you said.
Okay.
Now, the timeline. This is where it gets really interesting based on the material. Where does Ballerina actually fit? It's set during the events of John Wick, Chapter 3, Parabellum. And it also seems to bridge the time between the end of Chapter 3 and the start of Chapter 4.
Oh, wow. Okay, so smack in the middle of all that chaos for John.
Exactly. Which is a super clever way to potentially revisit things we saw in JW3, but maybe from Eve's point of view. The sources mentioned she might actually witness John visiting the director.
Oh, that's cool. Seeing a familiar scene from a new angle. I like that.
Yeah, and it's a perfect opportunity timeline-wise to really flesh out the lore.
Wow.
Dig deeper into the Ruska Roma, their whole training thing, mixing ballet and assassination. That's apparently a big focus.
Makes sense. And speaking of familiar, we've got returning cast, right? The sources list some big names.
Oh, yeah. Keanu Reeves is back as John Wick, naturally.
And of course.
Ian McShane as Winston. Angelica Houston as the director. And Lance Reddick as Charon.
Ah, yeah.
The sources point out this is one of his final roles before he passed away, which definitely adds a layer of poignancy seeing him again.
Absolutely. A really sad loss.
It really was. But there are new characters, too, expanding this world. Gabriel Byrne plays someone called the Chancellor, leader of a maybe-shunned group.
Interesting.
Catalina Sandino Moreno is playing Lena, who's apparently another assassin tasked with intercepting Eve.
Okay, potential antagonist there.
Seems likely.
Yeah.
And Norman Reedus is in it as Daniel Pine. He's got a bounty on his head connected to Byrne's character somehow. And a fun bit of trivia from the sources, Reedus filmed his part while he was still over in France, shooting his Walking Dead spinoff.
Ha, multitasking. Now, something the sources mentioned that got fans talking online was John Wick's appearance. It wasn't always planned.
Right. That seems to be the case. It sounds like his role, maybe more of a cameo, was added later on, possibly after Chapter 4 did so well to kind of boost Ballerina and tie it in more strongly.
Makes sense from a studio perspective, I guess.
Commercially, sure.
Yeah.
But it does raise some questions that the sources highlight, especially about continuity. If this is happening around the end of JW3, John is excommunicado, right?
Yeah. Everyone's hunting him. The high table wants him gone.
Exactly. So how does he fit into this? Some reports mentioned in the material suggest the Ruska Roma might even hire him for something, which feels complicated given his status.
Right. Why would the director risk using someone the high table is actively targeting? And why would John, trying to survive, take a job that could bring even more attention?
It's a bit of a narrative puzzle, isn't it? The sources present it neutrally, just noting it's something fans have picked up on. Inserting a new story, especially with the main character, into such a specific point in the timeline, it's tricky.
Definitely something to watch out for in the final film. It shows how complex building these shared universes can be.
For sure. But okay, let's pivot to the star Ana de Armas as Eve. The sources really emphasize her preparation.
Yeah, it sounds like she went all in. She apparently didn't even see herself as an action star.
Not at all. She mentioned being surprised, thinking she wasn't athletic enough. But she committed big time.
How long did she train?
4 months. Intense gun fu training with the 8711 action team.
Wow, the same guys who trained Keanu and did his stunts in The Matrix.
The very same. They're legends in crafting action. And they apparently really worked with her.
What do you mean?
Well, instead of just a generic program, they tailored the training and the fight choreography to her specific abilities as she learned and improved, played to her strength, showed her how to, maximize what she could do. She mentioned learning basic things like cartwheels first before tackling the really complex stuff.
That's smart. And it sounds like she got into it.
Totally. Said she
Uh-huh.
enjoys action now, and her dedication comes through. The sources say she did a lot of her own stunts.
That's impressive.
Her reasoning was wanting the audience to really feel it was her fighting, which lets the director film longer takes, avoid that quick-cut editing sometimes. She even talked about the bruises and scars being like merit badges. Painful but inspiring, she said.
Okay, huge respect for that level of commitment. So what's Eve's fighting style like? Compared to John Wick, I mean. His is so precise.
Very different, according to the descriptions. Eve is described as scrappier, grittier, not as polished, maybe more unconventional. She adapts. She'll cheat to win. She uses whatever's handy.
Weak. The sources mentioned plates
In a kitchen?
fight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or ice skates on a frozen lake.
Yeah.
Which sounds visually amazing, but also deadly practical. Using the environment.
I love that. Resourceful.
And the key detail, the choreography apparently incorporates mistakes. Moments where she messes up slightly and has to adapt.
Oh, that adds realism. She's still learning, right? Not the seasoned pro John Wick is.
Precisely. It contrasts nicely.
Uh-huh.
But the action itself sounds brutal. The sources use phrases like a brutal ballet of revenge.
Nice.
Specific moments mentioned include grenade fights, some kind of flamethrower sequence,
Flamethrower hose.
an ice pick showdown. So it definitely sounds like it's delivering that creative, stylish John Wick violence.
It really does. That blend of dance training and combat sounds like a great visual hook.
It seems central to the character. Now let's get into some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, because the production journey, as detailed in the sources, sounds eventful.
Ah, yes, the delay. Pushing it back a whole year. The initial reports just said more action sequences, or...
The official line, yeah.
Oh.
But the insider accounts you gave us paint a, let's say, more complicated picture.
Ah.
Reports suggest that the first cut, directed by Len Wiseman, had some pretty significant problems. Lionsgate execs were reportedly unhappy, calling it a mess. One source even mentioned an early test screening being labeled catastrophic.
Yikes. That's not good.
Not at all, and that seems to be where Chad Stahelski got more involved.
The director of the main Wick films.
Right. He was initially brought on just to help punch up the action during additional photography. But some sources claim his role expanded dramatically during the reshoots.
How so?
The report suggests he ended up effectively ghost directing large parts of the film during these reshoots, with Wiseman apparently not even on set for significant chunks of it.
Wow. That's a pretty major claim. If true, it suggests the studio was really concerned.
It certainly implies that. And these weren't just minor tweaks. The reshoots were described as lasting 2 to 3 months, taking place in Prague and Budapest.
2 months.
Yeah. Reportedly filming entirely new sequences, even adding new characters played by actors like David Castaneda and Sharon Duncan Brewster, who weren't in the original shoot. Ian McShane apparently joked they should call them new shoots, not reshoots.
New shoots. I like that. So basically, a significant overhaul.
Seems that way. And the results. The sources say test screening scores went from that catastrophic level way up, skyrocketed significantly, was the phrase used after Stahelski's work.
Okay, so maybe the intervention worked. It's fascinating how different the narratives are. Wiseman calling it additional photography for budget versus these detailed reports of huge changes. Quite the production story.
It really is, and the changes went beyond just filming. The original composers were replaced too. Joel J. Richard and Tyler Bates, who did the scores for the main John Wick movies, were brought in after the re-editing. The sources even mentioned specific track titles like Great Hallstatt Bake Off, whatever that is, and songs by Halsey and Amy Lee and La Castlevania.
So new music to fit the new feel, presumably. Any other production tidbits?
One interesting one was about a deleted scene. Apparently there was a fight scene filmed between Eve and Winston, Ian McShane's character, set inside the Continental Hotel.
Whoa, Winston fighting.
Right. But it got cut during the re-edit process, and McShane was reportedly furious about it.
Uh-huh. I can imagine. That gives you a sense of how much must have been changed or reconsidered.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Shows how much was potentially restructured. Shifting gears a bit, let's talk world building and visuals. The sources mention the locations.
Filmed mostly in France, right? Paris?
Primarily, yes,
Mm-hmm.
using Parisian landscapes and architecture for atmosphere. Plus Prague and Budapest for those extensive reshoots.
And the look of the film.
Described as stylish, polished, dynamic camera work, mixing close-ups and wide shots, strong use of color. Typical John Wick aesthetic, it sounds like. And the depiction of dance is noted as being precise, really contributing to the overall look and feel.
That makes sense, given the premise.
Yeah, that core idea of the Ruska-Roma training fusing ballet and deadly skills is key. Turning point work into tactical moves, framing Eve's whole mission as, like, part performance, part vendetta.
It's a really unique angle for an action hero. I saw the sources mention a fan nickname.
Oh, yeah. John Wick Cinderella.
Okay, that's pretty funny. Captures that mix of elegance and lethality.
It kind of works. So bringing it all together, what was the overall early buzz based on those test screenings the sources discussed?
Well, initially it sounds like it was pretty mixed. People praised the action, the stunts, the look of it, the cinematography.
Well, not the core Wick elements.
Right. But there were criticisms, too, highlighted in the material. Some felt the plot was a bit simple. Questions about character logic, like, why are some bad guys conveniently unarmed in certain scenes?
Ah, the classic action movie trope.
Exactly. And maybe some issues with realism, like Eve taking a lot of punishment and bouncing back very quickly. Plus, a sense that maybe it didn't have quite as many truly iconic, memorable moments as the main films. And some debate around the main character's emotional portrayal.
But, and this is the big but, based on what we discussed.
Right, the reshoots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The sources strongly suggest that audience sentiment improved a lot after Stahelski and the team reworked things.
So the hope is the final version irons out those initial wrinkles.
That seems to be the goal. The finished product is aiming to deliver that signature John Wick action and expand the universe through Eve's eyes, even if the road to get there was a bit bumpy.
It's always cool to see these universes grow and explore different corners, different kinds of characters.
Absolutely. Which leads us nicely into a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. The John Wick world has all these different groups, different traditions. The High Table, the Continental, the Bowery Kings Network, and of course the Ruska-Roma Ballet School.
Yeah.
Eve comes from that tradition, but her story starts differently than John's. She's a trainee, driven by this raw personal need for revenge. John's journey post-retirement was more about escaping the consequences of his past, trying to get out.
Yeah, very different starting points.
So the question is, how does Eve's path, being younger, maybe more emotionally driven, and starting within one of these intense training systems but focused on vengeance, compare to John's attempt to leave it all behind? Does her raw determination set her up for a totally different kind of future within this assassin underworld? Is her connection to the system different from the start?
That's a great question. Thinking about whether her journey is about mastering the system for her own ends versus John just trying to survive it or escape it, something definitely to keep in mind when watching.
Exactly. Food for thought.
And that's a wrap on Ballerina. If you loved geeking out with us about the action, the callbacks, and the universe of John Wick, hit follow and share roll credits with your favorite film nerds.